This is where things get a little more interesting, because when I think of the one assassin that I think I love seeing the most, and we got to see a little bit yesterday, but in general, I just love Hunbats. Like, I always like watching Hunbats. He's really good at setting up plays. I feel like that fits Cuvo's style, and it's just meta enough right now that that's something I wouldn't mind them going towards. But we also saw, a Wheelish get buffs. You had mentioned it. Most of the assassins are available. But that's the question mark I have for the Warriors, which is that we've had some really good games from Cuvo, and we've had some non-factor games from Cuvo. He likes to sit around and farm a lot early on. That's actually why I go to the Hunbats for him, because it's like someone that does really well late game, has a huge team impact, no matter what, realistically, but can still kind of follow the way that Cuvo's gameplay tends to evolve throughout the game. We'll see what he goes for, like you said. If that's even an assassin in his playbook, or if he's going to do an Osiris, go back to the year-long Shin, play something that we've been seeing over the last few weeks of play.
They've been recognizing that there is some problem here with the Warriors they need to deal with, and the Solar Scarabs are going to do 3 support bans up against Neil Mon. We'll even call that, the RDO most likely solo, but Neil was one of the few, maybe one of the only players who was playing out a support role at one point. So far, 4 Guardians banned out in the first round of picks between the Kuzenbo, Khepri, Yamoja, and then RTO and Hell on the other side for the Warriors. Still one more option available to them, but a lot of respect mostly here thrown towards Neil Ma.
And not only that, but I also think this indicates to me that the Scarabs are going to be driving this more towards either a Geb or a Sylvanas. Geb we saw be very, very prevalent yesterday in the second set, but the Sylvanas was really good for the Scarabs when they locked it in, and so maybe not something too surprising that they might go there. It also opens up this conversation for the Uller, which Stuart looked nuts on when he was playing it, to the point where it went from do we really have to worry about it, to a top 3 ban from the Kings. And so I actually really like the way they've kind of guided themselves here. I think they're playing into their strengths.
Yeah, it was one of those in game 1, it's like, okay, yeah, it kind of a nuisance, nothing too bad about it. Game 2, okay, yeah, we need to ban this going into game number 3. Game 3, Uller gets banned away from him. No shot that he got it back. So seeing Uller go from a basically non-factor, nobody was looking at this god aside from a couple of teams just picking him up just because, and now all of a sudden Uller is seeing top priority amongst the teams. Odin and the Morgan on the other side. But one god that was banned away so many times from the Solar Scarabs in their last set finally makes it through, and we finally get to see it. Bastet coming out here in the second pick.
I really like this draft right now from the Scarabs. I think we got to see a really good performance from the Uller the other day, so I'm expecting a lot from Stuart here, especially because most of the troubles he had were Netroid's ROM, which is something that's impossible to deal with to begin with. But you get a Bastet on top of that, Scream's signature pick, and he made it look good despite teams that didn't look good last year. So I have a lot of hopes for that one, as well as the Raijin, which I would argue, especially like contending Tiamat for the best one, in my eyes, maybe the best mid laner right now. I think this is a really, really good top 3 from the Scarabs.
The Morgan and Serket as a deadly combo for the Oni Warriors, even double Odin Cage if they decide to go that route. And looking at the bans for the second phase,
those are the supports I was talking about. You can't do that.
Yeah, yeah, you're not allowed to. They said, hey, that's a really good point you just made there, Gormaz.
Let's go
ahead and ban them away so we don't need to worry about it. Geb, that Polar Bear Mike piloted yesterday, had such a strong performance, especially with the changes to his ultimate, dealing with the percent and the flat damage. So for the first time ever, without the help of needing something like a Soul Reaver, you can actually kill somebody with that Cataclysm. Always a great feeling. In the Sylvanas, that was probably the hottest contest between at least the Scarabs and Kings matchup. All 3 games we saw prior to that Sylvanas. It'll get taken away. Solar Scarabs, they'll respond with an Izanami Artemis to strip that one away from Vote, but Vote's just fine with going with this Hachiman as his pick.
Well, now it's there's so many good supports taken away here. Like, you gotta, well, I mean, Ymir's actually still available. Hold on. Never mind. I'm perfectly fine with everywhere this can go. And there's not a lot of leaps on the other side. I mean, Odin, I guess, can make it through. Serket can make it over a wall. But good walls. Hachiman would get locked in. Morgan could get locked in. I wouldn't mind something like that. And again, maybe something that plays really well into these strengths. But also worth mentioning that Horus got a little bit of a buff since it's being hovered. It was the early game healing that was the most significant for it. That is where things are maybe the most unfortunate for you. Like, you've got good prot shred, you've got a stun that comes with you, you've got good, decent knock-up. So the peel was always there for Horus, but you're a warrior. No matter what, you're still a warrior. You're going to be lacking a little bit in your own health bar, and that early game healing was okay, but not a lot. So this is a really good buff for him. I'm excited to watch this. This is something I actually expected to see the Leviathans do before anybody else.
I was just kind of looking down for a moment and realizing that Cerberus, who was like one of the hottest picks for such a long time. Teams were first pick, first banning him, somehow made it all the way to 9th pick, and was also one of the core components of the Oni Warriors draft in their matchup against the Bolts. So the fact that it made it not only all the way here, but made it into the Solar Scarabs' hands, it might be a bit of an oversight here by the Warriors, but they still have 1 pick available to themselves. Is it going to be a support pick for Neil, or is this Odin or Serket maybe going his way? We'll have to look to find out as they have this final selection. But looking at the draft across this Horus, you highlighted perfectly well that early game healing, 20 base power extra at level 1, or 20 base healing, I should say, extra at level 1. 20 health doesn't sound like a lot, but as we saw in the SEC games earlier, 20 health may have just been enough to make or break some of these escapes.
And I think the Cerberus, if I remember, in the Titan set, like, Sot was nuts on this. I mean, there was a point where, like, they were losing the game, and they should not have been able to make a comeback, and Sot got, like, 4 kills in an engagement and really helped turn things around.
With the meta changes now coming through, I think we're going to see a lot of differences, and I think when you talk about that, you can see them here with Assassins back in the jungle.
Man, all those changes to the Mace tree just really do make it so much easier to go towards that Assassins column. I think it was actually Scream earlier on this week who said, everyone on the Assassin tab is now free game to be played, and that's because Jotun's got a cost reduction, Brawler's Beat Stick got some additional power, Crusher, more power, and it just makes it so much easier for these Assassins to start scaling up throughout the early game. Generally, at 8.8, we saw Warriors because of their scaling.
Nice little lax out from Stuart there, over in this duel lane so far, with them both being level 2. Neil Mara, world champion under pressure. Jumping in goes Stuart, though, looking for extra damage, and Vote will return the favor and get a beads in that situation. Interesting.
Yeah, Oni Warriors actually coming out very far ahead inside of that one. Stuart now going to have to play very safe within the lane. So the second that Neil Ma is able to heal himself back up, and it should come pretty easily.
Meanwhile, the Warriors, they've now got Neil over in Georgia, so able to play a little bit ahead of ping. And I think in fairness to him, Neil has struggled this year because of it. But is it going to still be a problem? It looks like Neil under a lot of pressure. The axe jump in from Stuart. Transforms again, but Vote on zoning. Remember, no beads available for Stuart here at all. The Hachiman banner comes down, but it's not enough to prevent him from living, and Neil Mar will survive that too as we approach 2 minutes in. Right now, rotating into the enemy jungle, as is Scream towards this left-hand side of the map. It looks like Scream's going to be the one looking for a gank, but there is a ward down to give vision of this as he comes on through. No beads available for Vote, remember, so he could be under some pressure. Still gets collapsed on by the kitty cats. The pounce is good, and Scream gets first blood. Cuvo Fred was looking for the invade, but now he's going to have to turn his attention to the fight. Great stun out from Dardis, takes out Scream. 1 for 1, but the first blood bounty so far is still on the side of the Scarabs, unless Stuart can get out of danger.
Stuart is able to make his way over the wall, but Purple Buff still going to be under pressure here inbound, trying his best to put up a defense, and with the buff to the second ability on the first, should be able to stick around.
And Cuba will get a kill, and Stuart can only watch on out of mana to continue the chase there as well. So 2-1, gold lead still in Scarab's favor because of the first blood, but they lose the purple buff, and they lose 2 kills in that duel lane. I will say, though, for this game, I think there's a lot of pressure here on Cuvo Fred and Dardes playing Serket and Morrigan, respectively, because they're against this Bastet. And they're the two that have struggled this year for the Warriors, outside of Neil, who should have less issues than usual. But Cubo and Dardes on squishier targets. The duo lane, though, just hasn't stopped in action. Beads down for Stuart. Neil still giving chase. Vogue going to zone away inbound for now, and Neil should be able to get this kill. At the tail end, Stuart still trying to live. The walls come through, and there is another kill for the Warriors. The duo lane working out in their favor so far.
And when the Oni Warriors get aggressive in the duo, it's when these buffs are spawning for the Solar Scarabs. Last time around, it was the purple buff invade off a pick. This time, red buff stripped away. The Solar Scarabs are fighting in, but maybe dedicating a little bit too much of their HP trying to hit. So that generally should be the support buff. Might have been a jungle buff if this were 8.8. As they were struggling, but now here in 8.9, junglers generally at least maintain level equity with the highest on the opposite side.
Dardes under pressure, blinked on by inbound, updrafted 2, will transform into the kitty cat himself. The Scream versus Scream is going on, and Scream's definitely winning. It's not the Scream you want to win, though. Cubo Fred will get credit for the kill. The poison does spread onto Baronic, but it won't be anything else other than a nice pick in mid, initiated on by the Scarabs.
Yeah, Scream tries to get involved early on, and unfortunately for him, cannot fight against himself. Dardes, great transformation. I believe the pounce to avoid the pounce as well.
Yeah, and that just added the extra damage on, and that's the abuse case of that. And that's one thing I was expecting in this game.
Upgrade pass, good stats on the initial. The Guardians really do benefit from that item a ton, and generally you want that inside of the solo.
And funny enough, the Guardian's doing well in the support role too. The Gebs, the Sylvanas is getting picked again a little bit more. We may just see Warriors get retired for a little bit, which is a bit of a change, I would say, considering they just had a heyday in the jungle for a moment or two. Bobby in mid lane, though, gets aggressive against Dardes. His rest of his team aren't even close yet to get in range, and he couldn't even swoop to get a health heal and reposition as his team weren't there. Now the red buff invaded by Warriors too. Gold Fury is on the table here.
The Blinken engagement onto Dardes alone, at least able to strip the beads from the Morrigan, but as you said, nobody in range from the Scarabs to follow that one up, and he just pays the iron price, loses his life, loses his purple buff yet again. The Solar Scarabs are losing completely on the macro game.
And one level down for Stuart in that dual lane still. Mid lane though, Dardes gets aggressive against Baronic, but Baronic there to continue the pressure, uses his beads and the drums of war as Dardes goes down. Good little start for Scarabs here. Can they find more? They look towards Neil, who'll dash away to safety. In the sky is Horus, but target options are limited, so I don't think Bobby will find one there. But a return kill from the Scarabs there on Dardes getting aggressive. And because of it, he lives.
You know what? I'll speak to that point, but there's more nuance than that, Smite fans, all right? In the early game,
listen, we're going to keep it simple, okay? We're going to keep it simple.
All right, use your ult before you die then.
There you go. Let's just keep it simple, you know? We're talking a Twitch chat here, okay? It's not like, you know.
My goodness.
Calm down. Cubo Fred in mid takes a bit of damage from those Taiko drums again. Veronic will Thunder Crush away, but Vote is going and finds the deep shot to get a double for himself. Bobby now on the run. The walls clap on his face, and he'll fall down to a banner. It's actually a double kill for Vote there. My apologies. I thought he got the 2 on the tail end of that horsey gallop in. Instead, the Warriors finding 3 picks are going to go straight for the Gold Fury.
Every time the Warriors get proactive, there's something that they want on the map. It's either, all right, let's get involved, find a pick, go to the purple, go to the red. This time it's going to be the Gold Fury and the Solar Scarabs with just Stuart and SOT alive 10 minutes in. Just have to let this one go, man. SOT slow on the rotation. Might have been able to contest his own red buff, but that looks like it's going the way of the Warriors as well.
Use those windows to their advantage and find the lead they've got.
But to speak to your point, sure, Baronic hits a massive power spike with Soul Gem, but inbound might just be dead in mid.
He is dead in mid, and there's no real escape. He will jump to a minion. Oh, tell a lie. A bit of a mistake. Drop kill there from Warriors. All kind of trusted each other to get the killing blown. In the end, Bobby will escape back to base, but his level deficit is going to continue to grow unless Nika realizes there's a freebie in the mid lane for him. He will go down. Thunder Crash from Baronic is back to safety. Rather than continuing aggression, all 5 members of the Warriors on this left-hand side for the red buff invade. Remember, the Fury is down.
Yeah, no need for the Fury anymore. Red buff will go the way of the Warriors. Purple spawning up very shortly, and I'm not sure that the Solar Scarabs have received either of these buffs since the first rotation. We're 13 minutes in, and the Oni Warriors are essentially playing with just twice as much jungle as the Solar Scarabs at this point.
We see a lot of variations. I think Crushers of the comes into play because of the dot damage from Bastet anyway, but, you know, at the same time, Brawlers is always useful for anti-heal.
Yeah, I think it is likely going to be the Brawlers for this guy right here. Neilma forced to use the ult early.
And now the pressure's on, but the walls will slow them down a little bit. Will the overinvestment from Scarabs be a problem? Well, they're losing the red buff at the same time.
It's done.
Across them up from the Oni Warriors. Solo Control still wants to go in aggressive. And in doing so, his ultimate forces Vote's beads, but now the Warriors can rotate in. Bobby kept check on him though, but not enough onto Nika, who was looking for a bird bomb, won't find it on Scream. Still the chase from Nika on the front lines here. Neilmar and Nika in the fray, but low on health as Cubo dives in. Bit of a forced fight on this left-hand side. I wouldn't be too comfortable if I was the Warriors here continuing.
Well, they're only here to go for one thing, and that's the Oni Fury, as it's going to be respawning very shortly. 5 stack from the Oni Warriors on the left-hand side, and where's Baronic? All the way on the opposite side of the map, trying to pick up a little bit of farm. Having Vote forced back to base could buy the Solar Scarabs a moment here to regroup themselves and try and look for a defense, but Nika hasn't left, and when the Soul Laners are around the Gold Fury, you better believe that's the call. Instead, now the Oni Warriors with a 5 versus 4 grouping here do have the advantage around the Fury Pit itself, trying to establish a little bit of vision dominance, but have not had the confidence to pull it proper. Now, finally, starting to leash it themselves with the Solar Scarabs. Look at this grouping. There's a lot on the left-hand side.
Really good job from Scarabs, though. When you look at the level differential earlier, a lot of the Scarabs are now caught up, or if not surpassed, their opposition with how this early game went. Bad news is, though, as you were saying, the Fury's still under pressure from the Warriors here.
Slow.
And the Scarabs just can't get in range to do anything about that. They have to surrender it.
They're stunned right in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, they should be. Well, 2-9, 21 minutes in the game. Then Gold Lead is about 2,500 in favor of the Oni Warriors here. And we are just waiting for the next big team fight. Both teams
they're going
really
to fire
looking for something. This is a big play if they do make this one, but I think they might have been spotted in the sky. Look at how Neil and Nico just moving across the map here. They see this coming. And I think I might have started a little bit. Cubo's going to come into the pit pretty fast, but look at the damage done. Cubo blinks in, looks at Stuart, axe to the face. Cubo taking a ton of damage, will use his ult to buy some time and jump away to live again. Meanwhile, though, the rest of the Warriors coming through, chased along from the Scarabs to secure Cubo Fred. And the tail end of the fight, though, SOT does a good job appealing for his team. Stuart, though, still under some pressure, has to fall back. The carries of the Scarabs very low here, and I think the Warriors sense it.
And now the Solar Scarabs grouped up as 5, try and find some defense in the middle of the lane.
Oh, bird bomb down from Nico onto Stuart. That'll take his life. SOT was trying to deal with Vote at the same time, and SOT will at least get a kill on one, but Nika has got a triple kill, and he would love the quadra right now up against SOT. Bobby's going to try and get away, but Nika might be able to find this on his own.
SOT is going to be incredibly tanky, and with no more abilities available, Nika might have to let this one go. We'll see if Bobby is similarly lucky, as immediately the Solar Scarabs starting the Fire Giant has it turned on their head, and now it's the Oni Warriors pulling the largest neutral objective.
The chase for Cuvo, I'm okay with them, but the after fact of that, I just don't think it was worth. This is costing them huge now. I like the idea of the FG call. I like the pick on Cuvo. Why not reset?
I don't know where they would be able to go, right? I mean, if they retreat into their tower, we saw they were cut off.
Oh, Bobby, though, causing a couple of problems at the tail end of here. Health bar's getting very low for Neil. He should die to this pit, and Bobby's still alive. Warriors will get the FG, but it comes at the cost of Neil Mar. SOT back in the fray, but what can he do against the Vote? Good Aegis from Vote. Avoids all the damage that SOT can provide, and he'll take out Inbound 2 and get the tail end of that damage off onto SOT for a double, 14-5, and 3 members of the Warriors have FG.
20 seconds to rejoin his team on the battleground, but a little bit of a look back. Nika having some fun, triple kill.
Look at the group in there, though. They're all like, okay, protect the back, and Nika's like, wait a second, 4 targets? Yes, please! I love that stuff. Bird bombs in, and then looks at Baronic, who, in fairness, Neil Mar did a lot of setup there just to support that and peel away. Nika gets himself a triple because of the support of his team.
But me praising Nika is nothing new, right? Say, I mean, everyone does that.
At 15 minutes in, sure, you can give him the praise for those rotations, but I mean, for my liking, I'd say Neil and Cuvo, who've been under a lot of fire about their players of late too, they both look very good so far today, but hopefully I don't curse them. Nika blinking in.
Wow.
Gets Stuart trapped in the ring, he'll leap away. Phoenix being tanked still by Nika as SOT tried to get to the front line there. Took a lot of poke in doing so. Warriors reset and now go again with a stun on SOT. Full commit onto SOT seems to be the plan here as the circuit ultimate used. Bobby up downs to give themselves a shield, but the Phoenix falls. The front line peeled away by the Warriors, and that opened up that field of threats. He won't find it this time round.
Nika just doing his best to create a little bit of space for the rest of the team, and good eyes, Doug. That Solar Scarabs left side. Phoenix, being down, is going to have some minions flooding their way in.
It'll take 3 minion waves, though, total to really take down a Titan on its own. I don't think it's going to be enough on its own, but it will maybe force someone back to base or a tail end of a fight. Nika, though, blinking in again.
Great ult.
Drops the ultimate down. Stuart leaps out and dumps on again. Baronic joining him, though, and Nika still providing the pressure with Neil Mar as Darnez gets the kill. I said it was Neil Mar. It's not. It's Darnez as the terror there as Vogue goes down in the back to scream, but Cubo will make him pay for a 1-for-1. However, with Baronic already being dead, a lot of the damage used from Scarabs on the back foot. As Warriors only lose Vote, it would slow down their FG siege, but it might not slow them down looking for towers.
No, that tier 2 tower is going to fall down pretty quickly, and there's that Fire Minion Wave peppering some damage into the Titan proper. Scream legitimately took a 1 versus 3 up against the Oni Warriors inside of the jungle. Of this build. Tanks are actually legitimately getting shredded by Vote at this point, and if he's lucky, a little bit of crit to back him up.
Well, he does have Spectral on the side of the Scarabs here, so they are trying to answer back a little bit of that crit that's in that build there for sure. But as you said, it's the penetration, just consistent barrage of arrows coming through. Warriors, though, back to the FG once again. Left-hand Phoenix has respawned, but there is another Fire Minion Wave heading down that lane that may get there if this fight continues too long. SOT takes a ton of damage from the walls again, coming out from Neil Mar for the setup of damage.
The second he shows himself on this left-hand wave should spell the go factor for Oni Warriors.
And he has to go there to deal with that Fire Minion Wave, otherwise they lose the Phoenix. And you are completely right. SOT under even more pressure now. Bobby trying to zone away. Stuart gets ringed in and leaps to safety. Baronic now under pressure, surrounded by 5 members of the Oni Warriors. Scream still trying to get back to this fray, but the damage has been done. Bobby will escape, but he'll lose half his health and his ultimate in doing so. And the Warriors, after taking Baronic's life and a couple of relics like bees off of Stuart, can fall back to the FG.
Scream, though, is now rejoining the fight with all of his resources available to him, and Dardes, already at half HP, might be a pretty juicy target for this Bastet.
Big fight this one for Scream. If they can steal this FG, they've got a window to get back in this game. It's not done just yet. But the damage he just did to Scream was... Sorry, so Dardes was huge, the pounce was good, and the declaw was better. But will he be punished now by Nika? Will the cancel buy him a moment? The mystical mail is tick, 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 boom in. Now he's going to look towards Stuart, the rest of his team dealing with the carries in the back line, or should I say the front liners, who can't do a ton against them. Kubo still looking at Stuart though, who has no bees, thrown back into the fray of the Oni Warriors. Stuart though buys time with his Aegis.
Rip.
Not enough though for Vote to clean up his kill, and now Bobby's next on the list, and soon after should be SOT.
SOT finds a nice Stygian Torment, only to extend its own life by a couple of seconds. Vote credit for the double pill, but I have to highlight it. We saw Scream jump the first ability from Dardes out of stealth. He didn't listen for the activation. He just knew it was coming, avoids that damage, and finds the kill. At the end of the day, though, micro plays like that might not be enough to net you a win.
Health bars are kind of low on the Warriors here. They don't have the FG. They only have a normal minion
15
wave.
seconds.
But Ronick does have his ult, his relics alive. There is a small window for him here. The drum's popped. He's focusing on the carries, mainly Vote, but Vote will use his ultimate to avoid and immune some of that damage and also prevent the CC. Oni Warriors will take this 1-0 so far.
Time gore for the first, what, like 16 to 20 minutes? It never really amounted more than like a 2,000 gold lead. But then the Oni Warriors are finally able to find some big picks and start to escalate that lead.
Yeah, this was a game where if the Warriors didn't get off to such a solid start, I think there's a lot more back and forth in the late game. You saw a lot of good fight from the Scarabs, but these early game kills, specifically from Kubo, transitioned into what was maybe some of the best. Like, I had flashbacks. I don't know if you remember this. It was a game against the Kings that the Warriors had played where Nika gets this Odin solo, and at the time, it was kind of a hard carry. It was just the solo carry from Nika. This was a lot more team-focused, but it had a lot of reminiscent moments of that, where it's just Nika, especially in that moment, getting a triple kill and causing so much trouble. That transitioned really well. Nika plus Vote. A little bit of Kubo still, although he carried a lot of the early game. Vote picked up a lot of the slack late game. It just transitioned too well for the Warriors, and the Scarabs had a little more fight later on in the game. But they were down by so much at that point that it didn't matter as much. They weren't going in on equal footing. Even when you got a single pick, it felt like the Warriors were ready for it and retaliated in kind.
A lot of that early game from the Warriors focused towards mid. That's where we saw the first 3 deaths of the game happen, was right there in that mid 2v2. And then from there, it kind of transitioned over towards the side lanes a little bit more. These two teams. See if we make any adaptations. The Bastet, look, the Bastet, it's a signature of Scream, but he wasn't able to quite put out the numbers that maybe the Scarabs looking for in game 1. Game 2, do you maybe see him make a transition away from that god?
They might pick it up again, but I think they'd want to shove it down in the picks and bans. It's one of those things, like, if they ban it in their second phase, you're still going to have plenty of assassins that I think are good for Scream. Whereas if you had grabbed, I mean, Geb, Sylvanas in that position, they picked it number 2, right? Even you're like a Cirquet over the Bastet, Terra, any of these other like really prominent supports or guardians or someone that could maybe fit up there that isn't going to be as, or I guess is going to be more contested than something like the best Bastet, which Scream's the only one who plays, I think could have benefited them a little bit more. It also has to open it up because we saw, I liked the Horus pick. I didn't necessarily like the Horus performance. It didn't really land where it needed to every step of the way. I mean, there were a lot of good moments from inbound, but definitely not as many as we've come to expect, or at least as you have to expect, especially if the Warriors are going to look like that. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe grab a support for inbound earlier, but also maybe even ban out the Odin, try and control Nika a little more.
Could be a good idea to maybe ban that Odin away. I believe Nika was one of the powerhouses. Maybe not the one who brought the Odin back in the meta, but definitely showed what a hard carry that god could be. So there will be a response from the Scarabs. They'll take that and the RTO away. The Oni Warriors will ban Hell. A wise ban. Nobody really wants to play as Hell, play against Hell, be anywhere near Hell. Maybe unless you have it on your team, then you're fine having that Hell. But they'll ban it away along with the Morgan, which is interesting because Dardas picked up in that game, did really well with it. But we saw what Baronic was able to do with it previously when coupled with the Tsukuyomi, so a bit of a wise ban here, not wanting to first pick that. They don't think that that is the option they want to go for their first pick. So they'll ban it away knowing that the Solar Scarabs might take that in their top 2, and instead they'll leave open the Umoja after the Cerberus and Serket bans.
And honestly, the Cerberus is the one that stands out the most to me because I felt like that was potentially going to be a first pick. I think you had mentioned it, not just something that has been incredibly powerful, but something that is great specifically for Nika, and I think it would have been able to fall right in line with what they were wanting. And it is a little weird, though. Like, you jumping back onto the Morrigan, it's not been played a whole lot by Baronic, and so that's it stands out to me as one that you probably could have gotten away with banning something else, but at the same time, I don't think you need to worry too much about it. I only have one game of his, one game that he's actually played it. Was banned against them, though, and so something that was maybe a little more worrisome, banned each game by the Kings every time they played it. So still something, I guess, worth worrying about, but maybe not as much as I would have worried about some of the other picks. Although the Raijin, admittedly, who I think is one of the most powerful to have over there, didn't seem to do much, so I guess they don't mind it if they can handle it.
Be Terra and Tsukuyomi on the other side of the map for the Solar Scarabs. Picking up that Tsukuyomi very early. Scream had a strong performance on it in the second game against the Titans. That was coupled with the Morgan, so they get that double piercing Moonlight, maybe focus out 2 different targets, or just burst kill a single target, but now coupling that with the Terra. Catch anybody inside that Terra ultimate, and you hit them with that piercing Moonlight, you can instantly try and break out the ultimate damage from Terra, try and get some burst healing for yourself. But Solar Scarabs with their top 2 now leaves the Oni Warriors. We saw Vote go for a Hachiman after quite a few things got banned away from him in the second round. Do you maybe think he picked something up a little early here, or do you think he's fine just grabbing whatever's open?
I mean, this wouldn't be a bad spot if you want to go for the Rom,
The Room.
or the Ul. If you try to put 2 together, you end up with really, really weird names. But yeah, like Rom, Uller, all really, really like prominent. I completely forgot Tiamat existed in the game because she's been glanced over. Admittedly, she hadn't been doing too hot lately either, so not the end of the world to forget about her. The Raven catches me off guard just a little bit, but it is a Cuvo pick, so even though it's not maybe something that I expect heavily right now, it's something that he plays really well, and this is a meta that, especially if he can play like he did last game, I'm not going to complain anywhere near it. But I will say this Terra Tsukuyomi was the exact same starter 2 that the Scarabs had against the Kings yesterday, at least in the game that they won. And so I do think that gives them a little bit of prominence. Those 2 picks are very powerful for him.
Stewart going with the Rom for his selection of Hunter. So you're talking about it maybe for Vote, but instead it'll be the Raven and Tiamat, putting a lot of priority towards their own. We saw a few Raven bans previously, and I was kind of shaking, kind of scratching my head, shaking, going, oh, Raven. Not really a pick I would think he'd be coming back, but then again, it is an assassin, and some of his core has been buffed. I know that Crusher is also an item that some Ravens would go. It gives you a little bit of best of both worlds. You get some high ability damage, you get some basic attack speed, and get a little bit of extra bang for your buck. But as far as the bans go, if the Oni Warriors, they ban out Baronix Giannis, and they take away the Sylvanas. Giannis Sylvanas, it's a fun one to throw together. They take that one away from Bobby, and then on the other side of the map, it's going to be an Izanami and a Heimdall banned away by the Solar Scarabs, and they'll pick up the Solar Scarab and Kepri as their 4th pick.
And I really am liking their draft. Terra's great for team fights, and we've seen what Sot can do on that pick when it's over in the solo lane. Rom is just good. There we go, blanket statement, pretty easy. If you hit his ult, which I expect a lot of, it's going to be a great fight ender or starter or even in-betweener. As long as you are able to get a kill, I think it is going to be helpful. And even if you don't get a kill, sometimes it's incredibly helpful. The Tsukuyomi we saw yesterday looked incredible for the Scarabs as well. And you get the Kepri play, which I think the Kepri brings it all together, something that actually kind of opens my eyes to realize there's so many different Guardians right now for supports that are viable and feel good, that I think it's definitely making things a little more interesting.
Yeah, Guardians are cool and everything, but Amaterasu, we didn't see her at all Phase 1, at all Phase 2, except for the one less than serious matchup between the Dragons and the Titans, I believe, and I think it was...
It happened, though.
It did happen. I think it was Cyclone Spin, if I'm not mistaken, who picked that up and was able to pilot up against the Osiris that he was going against. But now seeing it here, for the first, we'll kind of call it the first
my brain
legitimate...
purged that game, and the fact that I remember Panda Cat playing Osiris versus Cyclone's Ama really upsets me. I liked that it was locked away, J-Mac. It was gone.
I opened
up
that can of worms. Now we have to deal with the repercussions of it, but it's going to be an Amaterasu and a Hachiman one more time for Vo. We saw what he did last game, 26,000+ player damage on this god. Now on the other side, the Solar Scarabs for their 10th and their 5th selection, and for the 10th and final selection of the draft, It'll be a Merlin to round things
The
out.
king, dude.
Well, I so can.
Then you're just like getting a bit
There's
weird.
been,
There's
you're
too many
from the
kings.
UK. There's like 100 kings.
They have to die first. The kings aren't dead.
Okay.
King Arthur's not dead,
Well,
right? He's
not
in game.
yet.
Right? You can't have that happen. All right, back into the game we go, though. Oni Warriors up 1-0 so far up against the Solar Scarabs. And look at the drafts. I do kind of agree with what Gore was saying on the desk. I'm kind of favouring Warriors on paper with how game 1 went and looking at game 2. It's almost a bit trickier, I feel, this time for Scream to get to that back line because the target's going to go on her even more mobile.
They are more mobile, but he's got one of the best engage tools as far as Assassins goes. Piercing Moonlight. You just kind of press 4, you point it at whoever you want, and you're going to get there. At least 1 proc is all you need to teleport to your opposition. That said, I love playing Devil's Advocate, but I'm not necessarily doing it just for the sake of it right now. I really like the Solar Scarabs draft. I think they got great engage, they've got great survivability, their scaling, all incredibly strong.
Still got aggressive this duel, and there's a frenzy was just popped by Bobby after the ability usage, and now they're trying to just get wave pressure more than anything else. Stewart and Inbound will control the lane for the time being. Not real surprising because I do think Kepri's damage output in the early game is a little bit underrated that most people won't realize because of just how much those dot damage do as we check in with Nika dealing with SOT's Terror in this solo lane. I know we were talking on the desk about Amaterasu not seen too much of her, but her early game did get some buffs recently.
Wow.
And that's exactly what you can do. Nika with a solo kill on Solo Island. So far from the junglers really is the style of junglers they've both gone for.
Yeah, a little bit of a slower start. Maybe the Robin could get involved a little bit earlier on, considering he just is incredibly strong. But Scream, well, he's doing a little bit stronger.
Nice overhead kick to immune all that damage coming through from Scream. And Cuba will get back to his tier 2 tower in the mid lane. But it does open up a jungle pathing here for the Scarabs to invade. Back Harpy's taken away. Red buff, unfortunately, down for about another minute there. But at the least, you know, he'll take that
stacked up, feels pretty good, and some additional
take some
CDR to have that Astral Barrage available almost always, as now the Oni Warriors are going for that same style, invading the purple.
Riptide gets hit, and Bobby just trying to juke this out because he don't think he can slip through because of where the Riptide placement was, and that could cost him his life. Ultimate used, and the crushing wave will cause him a problem. Can they still pick up the kill at the end? It will go to Neil, but the overextension could be punished.
Scream now with the rotation as the Piercing Moonlight onto 3, and the damage is ringing true.
And Cubo Fred goes down to Stewart, but return kill from Dardes on Scream as the rotation returns from Warriors. It's a 1-for-1, or should I say 1-for-2, but maybe it could get worse as Vote is going in, looking at Stewart, but the sustain comes into play to keep him topped up in time. Dardes now with the double kill, getting hold of Stewart. Can he get away from SOT? The stun over the wall from Neil was good enough to peel for a little bit, but where are SOT's cooldowns? 8 seconds on Dardes as he needs that leap away. The walls will not slap, but he'll dash towards them to make it 4-for-3 across the map.
Dashes in, gets his Abduct stunned out. Stewart, though, going for Transcendence immediately into the bow build. I don't know if it's going to be, maybe we see the Icavale for that additional power. Maybe it's going to be the Odysseus' bow for this team fight presence, or considering he has no penetration in his build right now, could even be the Atalantas.
And I think that's the one question mark is where does the pen come in now on this Rama build? Because he's going to need it eventually. I do agree you could probably go for Icavale for an even bigger spike. Odibo is something you're going to definitely use late game for sure. Getting it this early, I mean, it will help with a bit of wave clear. We'll see how it goes, though. Fury, though, started up by the Scarabs and SOT on zoning work to keep Neil away. Meanwhile, Scream's is going to engage all the way in with that ultimate to keep the pressure rolling on Neil. Neil will drop the Riptide, though, to buy some time. Or should I say, the ultimate to keep him peeled away. The Gold Fury's reset, and now Warriors can go to town. And Nika's looking at Scream.
Nice dazzling offensive, finds the double stun, and the rest of the boys right behind him. Vote credit for the kill and a Scream, and now Cuvo Fred leading the charge.
SOT had to blink away, but still being chased down by the remnants of the Warriors members. 4 members strong. The Horsey's in the shop. He's going to charge on in, looking towards SOT, and SOT just eats that as does Stewart. No real chance, though, for the Warriors here to look at the Gold Fury, I feel. Especially with the 3 members of Scarab still healthy enough to contest.
Vote a little bit too low HP to want to stick around in this one, and the Solar Scarabs benefiting from the Oracle Vision on the Gold Fury proper means that the Oni Warriors do have to exercise a little bit of caution. But what an expensive engagement from the Solar Scarabs. That was Piercing Moonlight, Earthen Fury, and Astral Barrage all committed to try and shut down this Yamoja.
And to be clear, he lived after those.
Yeah,
and
you
then
gotta
they
get
found
those.
the kill, yeah.
SOT now looking for a little bit of a tower dive. Vote in some trouble.
Vote is in trouble with SOT wrapping around the battle like you said, but Stewart took a brunt of the damage there. Neil now turns up, and Vote held his own just in time. The walls did not collapse from SOT. as the Insuguri kept him alive. All the while, though, Pyromancer was taken on that right-hand
Sure,
side.
inbound.
Oh, you think Bobby's just being a little bit too generous with the farm?
Correct.
All right, I could see that.
Yeah.
Cuvo Fred, though, getting involved onto Stewart. Rollout should be enough to get him out of range, and Stewart feeling very safe inside of that tower. What isn't safe is the Gold Fury.
Well, not with Nika being over here, too, and you can just see Scream limping back and giving a speed bump on the right-hand side. It's going to be too little too late here, I feel, for the Scarabs to get in and contest.
So fast.
As the Warriors will extend their gold lead now to the match that of their experience.
Solar Scarabs are grouped up here, and the Oni Warriors seem like they're willing to take an engagement right here. SOT misses out on the pillar and now isolated and surrounded.
And they're looking at SOT, who's a very tanky target, but there's the walls coming through from Neil to slow them down. And crushes on in, getting inbounds life, who did at least get his
What's
ultimate
going on?
off. Baronic, though, gets the kill on Cubo from his overextension. Scream's Egg is bought him so much time as the focus is still on SOT, who is barreling in towards Vote. The sustain from Neil comes to play as Don is able to wrap around the back on that Tiamat, goes unchecked. And another couple of kills, at least one, in favor of the Warriors there in that skirmish in the jungle.
Gold Fury in 2 for the one death of Cubo Fred is a great trade, but maybe add another one onto the count. Baronic getting overly
Oh,
involved.
but he blinks in. He's still trying to find the kill on Dardes. Realizes he can't escape Nika.
Stewart.
But he can't find Dardes either. Stewart doesn't have his ultimate available in this Rama to really cause a problem there. So Dardes will live to fight another day with him on your face.
Yeah, he's faster than you just because of Amaterasu's first ability. Now you're slowed thanks to the Frostbound Hammer, and he's attacking you often because of the Berserker's Shield. And even if you do decide to turn on him, he's got some great stats to stick around in these fights.
Baronic under pressure here in the jungle as Nika dashes in, and there's good damage from the walls from Neil. Nika's still
Beats
looking for it
Aegis.
though, but the Beacon Aegis, as you mentioned, used by Baronic there. Walls hit onto Neil, but the Riptide will give him some separation again as another bit of pressure comes flowing through from the Warriors. It costs them a blink from Nika there, and it costs them the ultimate, but they do get Beads Aegis, as you said, out of Baronic, and a Pyromancer too.
Scream now on the trace, trying to use the Piercing Moonlight to finish off Neilma. Not quite enough damage, and the Harpy blocks the one.
But there's a little bit of help from that ultimate coming through from Bobby to keep Scream alive. Bad news bears, though, his Dardes was there for the revive to pick up a kill, making it support for jungle. And now the chase is on. Vote making this rotation in. Rama is over here too from Stewart. The horse goes in from Vote looking for the damage and gets it on Stewart. Vote dashes it on Stewart and gets the kill. He's going for the backline in Baronic as Bobby limps away to the right. SOT peels to the left. And it will be the sacrificial lamb Bobby for Vote to get a double kill and leave 4 members of the Warriors in good standing on the right side of the map.
The Solar Scarabs just try their best to find something in a bad situation. Pyromancer having already fallen, the Solar Scarabs say, okay, we have to win the fight. We got to fight now, and that's just not the right call, especially considering how far ahead the Oni Warriors are. Had you not taken that engagement, you're not worried about this Fire Giant going down 17 minutes and 50 seconds of the game. It would have just been a reset, but instead, 3 members of the Scarabs die, and the Oni Warriors, they put fire on 7,000 gold in the lead. Can do no wrong, and there's plenty of towers left on the map. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just gold caches waiting to be collected.
Well, look at how much of an island Stu is on this left-hand side. The good news is he's buying time for his team who are looking at a tier 2
Might be
tower.
out. Oh, never mind.
Great riptide from Neil, though, as you cast a cursed him there at the tail end to bring that down. Nika, though, dealing with 3 on this right-hand side. Has reinforcements
Has
and
to die.
Donis coming through. And Scream still engaging in, looking for the kill. Has the ultimate from Bobby, too, to continue this chase on under the tier 2 tower. Donis now under threat, too. But maybe if he can hold a Scream, he will do at least. But it costs him his Aegis and his life as well. The tier 2 on the right will stand. The tier 2 on the left will fall. Overall, I'd say that's still a win for the Warriors because the tower a little bit harder up against that Rama for the time being. But their health will be shredded by the Chins at least, which will come into play. Both teams now waiting for the Fire Giant to spawn. Left-hand side, Stuart's just going to push out that wave, try and catch up to Vote's level 20. He's still got a 2-level deficit there as he'll fall back, but the FG now pulled and leashed by the Warriors.
And it's burning quickly. He's actually getting really lucky with these crits. Fire Giant down to
gonna get
10%. SOT has to try, but is not successful. Only Warriors credit.
And Stuart wasn't even in the area to really make a part of that. The snipes could have come up big for them, but they're also not feeling confident to engage that either, it feels like. They were like, nope, we have to surrender this. Maybe with how the last tier 2 Fire Giant defense went, they feel confident enough to be like, no, we can hold here.
We'll see if that's the case. Last time it was only Fire Giant on 3 members, and it was less than a minute now. Fire Giant on 5. Gold already spent up, now pushing 11,000. In the lead of the Oni Warriors should be an opportunity to put up a defense.
They see Nika in the mid lane here, the Scarabs, and that's why they step up towards him. And Neil taking a brunt of damage this time round. His health bar's been shredded, and his ultimate will not keep him alive. Nika now into the fray, looking to maybe come over the wall if he wants to. And Cubo Fred up downs, but dies to Scream still. Nika tries to separate the backline and keep Stu out of the frame, does well to do so. SOT on the Scream in the front side, causing some problems and have to be kited away by Nika, who's walled off. But the health bars of the Scarabs is too low. And even though they lost Cuvo and Neil Mar, it looks like Warriors should at least be able to get a tier 2 on the right-hand side.
You're right, Hindu. The tier 2 defense is looking good for the Solar Scarabs. Able to shut down Neil Ma off that initial. The rest of the Oni Warriors had backed up a fair bit. Neil Ma still leaving himself high and dry on that tier 2 tower line.
Scarabs there, though, because I think it shows you how much they respect Nika being around. They see Nika in the mid lane and they're like, we can fight this. But when Nika's there, like, we can't fight this, we have to run. And now it's Nika versus the Scarabs at the Gold Fury. He's walled in place. Has to use the beads to give him some separation. The Gold Fury still taking some time though. Vote is here alongside him. Respawn from Neil, and Dot is on the way too. As Vote is engaged on the backside, it's Scream and a bit too deep here to take some damage, but will still be alive. Nika off to the right hand side will escape as Vote is taken down by SOT for a second. Scream meanwhile will also escape. It's SOT that's just hanging around too long as the rest of his team retreat, and he's punished, and this could now be a Fury.
Yeah, SOT is so deep on the Oni Warriors side of the map. The rest of his team legitimately just trying their best to limp back to base, and he got a little bit too proactive. Shut down immediately. Oni Warriors now, Gold Fury inside. Able to stop him the last 2 times, but now without SOT, we'll see how well their defense fares.
Checking in with Relic situation. Some of the carries are very much without their Relics this time round. Both members of the Scarabs, though, in the mid and the Hunter role do have beads available. Neil Ma got a front line, take some Phoenix damage, but all the while this is leaving Nika 1v1 with a Phoenix. Baronic's coming over here to try and deal with that. But now that Bobby's turned up, it's open separation in the mid lane for the pressure to continue. Nika's going to slip through the portal gated area back to safety after doing the damage to that left-hand Phoenix with the follow-up. Now that ultimate on cooldown for a while alongside that of Neil Mars. Does give it a bit of a window to Scarabs to play aggressive, but there's not a whole lot on the map for them to really look at here. It's going to be Pyromancer. A pick on Neil would be great at this stage, though, just to relieve some of this pressure. As the fire minions start to pour on this left-hand side, you see the ping go down there. Pyromancer now pulled by Scarabs, will go down relatively quick. Daughters looking for a cheeky steal over the wall, won't be able to find it on the Tiamat this time round. But with Nika in tow, the pressure is now on Stewart again. Stewart's got both relics available and needs to use the beads early on. SOT deals with Daughters on the left-hand side, and Nika took more damage than bargained for. Scream comes on in, looking for the secure, but the shells and shields coming through to cause some problems. A good revive onto Scream from Bobby, but it's not going to be enough to keep him alive as Cubo forgets the kill. SOT separated by Daughters and Neil as well. And now 3 members of Scarabs are running for their lives. But Warriors are on the flank around the corner.
Daughters now has himself 3 members inside the net. Stewart caught out.
And now with him falling down, Bobby's going to probably die to minions there unless Vote wants to kill himself. And he'll take it too. Last on the list will be Baronic, who falls down to Cubo Fred. And it looks like this could just be the end of the game. Both teams last week lost to the Titans, looking for bounce-back victories, and, well, it's going to be the Warriors here today that find the victory over the Solar Scarabs in solid performance succession.
Yeah, Oni Warriors, man, it didn't seem like they had to break a sweat whatsoever inside of this one. The Solar Scarabs generally are a team that will push whoever they're playing against up to the limit. They play to the level of their opposition.
Until it gets to the point where things start to get a little more out of hand. I think there was a good early rotation from Solar or Troll that helped things out for the Scarabs, but once that kind of stopped happening or stopped being as much of an advantage, it was a lot of really good pickup. We had really good Rivers rebukes, and of course Riptides as well, coming down from Neil Ma that were just absolutely insane to watch. This Emoja really benefited this team in terms of the control and the CC that it was able to bring. There's even a moment where I think someone was about to die and just barely gets clipped by the stun from Neil, and he ends up saving his teammate. So a lot of just fantastic plays from the Emoja. And that translated well to make Dardes and Vote look really good. Dardes, I think, had a great slash line and a really good performance, but we got to see Vote once again on this Hachiman just have the time of his life, it felt like. Really good shots, really good aggressive plays, and really heads up for where he is. I mean, we've seen a lot of these ults and a lot of Hachiman plays where Sometimes you got to disengage. Sometimes you got to run away. You got to play it safe. He was engaging with his team. He was in the front line for some of it and really causing a lot of trouble for the Scarabs. It just didn't seem like they had everything together that they wanted to in order to answer back.
One of the key things to pull here, Vote going 7-1 this game. I think he went 7-1 last game too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So picking up 14 kills, 2 deaths, and however many throw and assists you want to throw out there. Another 27,000 player damage game from him, so another very high damage game. But kind of going back towards Neil with the Shimoja, it's been talked a lot about, with the ultimate getting the nerf, the passive getting a nerf.
And what we've seen this weekend showcasing, it's a little wider this time around, makes things interesting.
It's been an interesting start to the weekend so far with our now third set of the week complete with the Oni Warriors getting a 2-0 over the Solar Scarabs. We now come to our second match of the day, or fourth of the week, but our second in-studio match is the bigger highlight to take from here. The Jade Dragons and the Atlantis Leviathans here in studio playing for our second set of the day, and if it's anything remotely the same as what we saw yesterday, Gormizer, I'm expecting big things coming from these. Let's take a look at the standings real quick before we jump around here and see kind of where everything shakes up. That's going to put the Solar Scarabs down at the bottom 0-3, and with the Oni Warriors their win, and now puts them comfortably in 6th seed for the time being, but still room for things to shake up here with this next match.
And you have to remember every single one of these matters, not just because, top 2 is very important, but realistically, everyone's watching who you're beating, right? To know who exactly you want to throw into different group stages to try and make things as convoluted for them as possible.